Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube video. And today, we're talking about battle tech and how to get battle tech, into the water because, I really like ships and stuff in battle tech. But it's kind of difficult because, mechs are obviously, they're not supposed to float. You can't just, make them float. That would be way too difficult and stuff like that. And then I was thinking about it because I was so bored, and this is like my adaptation. If I had enough time to create a game of BattleTech and money, is how I try to kind of adapt it to put more like make it so that ships and stuff are actually like a good plan in BattleTech. Make it kind of work around it. And obviously, BattleTech is like these mechs. They're walking, can't go into the water. And BattleTech, obviously, like with putting, BattleTech in the water, how would we work with, terrain? Because obviously, number one, there wouldn't be any terrain other than if we put like small islands and stuff. It would be pretty, difficult to get terrain in the water. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So honestly, I think terrain's only is going to be the only big problem that we have to worry about with putting BattleTech in the water. And I feel like even with terrain, we could still like put like little islands and like volcanoes and stuff like that like peep out of the water. So that could be like some pretty good terrain that you could probably put your ships around. But other than that, I feel like BattleTech already has most of the things to do like a water expansion. And even most of the things, like I found some models that can be 3D printed online that look really good. Like look at this one, River Monitor. And there's already like an OG BattleTech thing for this. Except the only problem is that it can't go on land. And that's why most people I feel use hovercraft. Or not I feel, that's why most people use hovercraft. Is because like boats like these are so limited, and like even with most of the maps that have water, it's like a little river. So even if you were to put a boat, they could just be like, all right, when this boat gets to this part, I'm just gonna blow it up. It's that easy to combat most water things. And I know that they already have like a depth thing with water, so I was like, what else? But now it's time for me to actually be like, you know, hey, this is the blah blah blah. So first of all, I remember one time like I couldn't swim, just like these BattleTech mechs, and what my friend did was he threw me into the deep end, and all of a sudden, just as I was about to go down under the water, no, I'm just kidding. I couldn't swim. I never learned to swim like that. I'm almost drowned. But still, with these mechs, what we can do is just like how in BattleTech Gothic, where they just added like the Gothic things, we can add like little floats, little floaties to the mech, or we could say like that. We could say that some of the light mechs can just like float on the water and stuff like that. And then for the heavier mechs, it's easy. They just don't float. But I feel like with the heavier mechs, like I think it's called the one that has the skull in its face. What's that called? The Atlas. We can just be like, hey, it doesn't float. It's that easy, but it's not like it really needs to float. We could have it like a submarine type thing, if you know what if you know what I mean, which is kind of silly. But I feel like most Atlases are already like tall enough to peek over the top. But I don't know how BattleTech rules work. And with most of the boats, we can just like, cause look in the background, there's already a submarine model for BattleTech. I've seen there be a submarine model for BattleTech that somebody's used in their army. But yeah, we can just do like, hey, some of them just don't float, some of them can float. And look at this map that is mostly water. We can just be like, hey. But I feel like that little choke point in the middle is what's going to be like, what's going to hurt most ships. Because most ships are going to have to spawn in from those two parts on the side. And then, go through the middle if they actually want to be like useful, unless they're hovercraft. And then I was like, hey, like with the heat thing, there wouldn't be heat when the mechs are on water because water is really cold and water is really good for heating. And then I was like, wait, what I realized is that most ships have like a buoyancy thing, and most battleships, like, if you shoot all of your weapons and you're like this mech that's obviously not built to be on water, while it would have some tech for water, it's not built to be on water. You of course have to worry about flipping over, and then it's the same thing with like standing, on mechs on land. And we could just do like, hey, we could have, instead of heat, we could have like buoyancy or something to see if to see if the mechs and stuff flip over. That would be like a good rule to replace heat. And then we can do like, instead of like, of course, because like water also, like if ammo explodes underwater, it's not going to be as crazy explosions. I mean, it still would be crazy because it matters the ammo. But we could do like like your mech or ship has like chambers, and if the chambers explode, you have to risk like the mech sinking and stuff, which for lighter mechs would suck, but for heavier mechs that are obviously built to like walk underwater, like a Pacific Rim right here, we could just do like, I don't know, torpedoes and stuff. Or like if the pilot chamber gets hit, the pilot just drowns, is like guaranteed out. But we need like bigger maps that, of course, it would be like worth it to go on the water instead of just walking around or like staying on land and shooting. And yeah, that's just my take on BattleTech in the water, if you get what I mean, because most of the stuff is just like random concepts that I'm throwing out. But I really just like ships, and I really like planes and BattleTech. It's just I don't know how to incorporate them, because I don't know, and I really like infantry. But it's kind of difficult when you have this huge mech that can, that can like go on the water, and the mech can go on land, and the mech can jump, and the mech can this and that, and it can also transport troops and stuff like that. It's kind of difficult to like, what's the point of having a helicopter when most helicopters would really get one tap by a mech, and then now the troops in that helicopter are gone and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's really difficult, and I'm just trying to work it out. And yeah. Other than that, like, subscribe, guys. Please. I'm really trying to tap into this BattleTech audience. I'm trying my hardest, but I haven't been doing good so far, and I lost subscribers, so it kind of like sucks. But I'm trying to get into, I'm trying my best. I'm not gonna let this outdo me. And other than that, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.